Bonjour! It's me. And it's him.
That's me.
That way. Yep.
This way.
I'll tell you what, ladies and gents. Helen's not here yet. Hopefully, I just thought, I wonder if they got wind of it and they thought, do you know what? And they actually sort of abducted her last night.
That is
so you ain't talking about it?
Yeah, I mean, you can't do that.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Oh, Phil's not ready. Give me 30 minutes. All right, mate, we'll sit and wait.
Yeah, I'm going to have a kip.
Yeah, I've got me brew. I'll just, whatever. But, I'll show you. This is what I used to do in my spare time, ladies and gents. I'll show you when I used to sit in my shed, bit of carving. There's my shark.
Very nice.
Oh, I love a shark. Then I've done a self-portrait. That's a beard before anyone wants to start being naughty. And when I was a silver Viking online, I love my dragons.
Wow.
A bit of carving. And on the shed, I've got to repaint it. I have my welcome sign. Welcome. See, we don't buy nothing in this house. I can make it, carve it, flag it. But yeah, I'm going to get them behind me. But I had one of those Dremels.
Yeah, I know the ones you mean. Yeah, I've got one. I've never used it. So I'm glad yours has got to good use. But I think it just goes to show that how important it is to have some sort of creative outlet. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter who sees it or what you end up doing with it. But I think if you've got that creative energy, then you should find an outlet for it because it does a lot for your well-being.
Agreed. Yep, definitely. I mean, yeah, I've done all that. Like no one would ever see it, but it's literally just worked out here now. Like 3 years later, I can show it off. But like you say, yeah, it's definitely that's why I do all this painting and that. It's not about showing it off. It's just, I don't know. It's just relaxing. It's nice. Your brain chills out. Your brain's not talking to you. Do you know what I mean? So
I do know what you mean because I went through a period where I translated a lot of things into music and did an album and a few other sort of associated songs with that. No lyrics or anything, no singing, just instrumentals. And they're all available online, but I'm not going to say what the name is that I used for it because I don't want people to know. And it's because that's not what it was for. It was just there for an outlet. And so I put it out there, and if people find it, then they find it.
Happy days. So do you actually believe, like Trigger Christian here, I don't know what evidence he's got, but apparently aliens are demons. Do you believe that?
Oh, Helen is on her way.
Oh, happy days.
So she'll be here very soon. Sorry for that. What was it that Triggered Christian said?
He says, I believe aliens are demons.
I think we should boot him for saying that. No, I'm just kidding. I think that that is an interesting angle, actually, and it's something that I am going to talk about a bit later on because what I've done to go alongside what Helen is doing is I have had a look into the contextual and historical appearances of greys and similarities that there have been over time and how they have changed and why they've changed. And certainly demons and angels would form part of that.
Yeah. I think it was a bit broad. He said that I believe aliens are demons where it's the same as humans. There's some real satanic demons on this planet that are human. I don't believe all aliens are demons. That's why I put aliens are demons, not all of them, but there's going to be, if that species exists, there's going to be evil within it, like humans, I believe. Oh, so yes,
I agree with
that. So some aliens are demons.
Yeah, I mean, I will say for the record as well that my own personal belief is that, of course, looking at the laws of probability, there will be life that exists on other planets, in other galaxies, on other systems, and things like that. That's, I think, something that we can all accept. And in terms of actual space aliens and visiting this planet, I would say that I am extremely skeptical of that, but I am open-minded. I am of the opinion that people have experiences and that those experiences are interpreted by the brain according to specific things that are important in the context of in which they are living. and that they interpret it as whatever a dominant thought is in that particular time period. Is, I hope, clear enough.
Yeah, I think let me bring it up so it's a bit more, so I know what I'm talking about. But the most credible one for me, that I've sort of looked into, but I suppose there's not really ways to realistically say, oh, I can debunk it because we haven't got the information. But I find it hard to think that the Barney and Betty Hill situation was fake. That comes across like, because they were a mixed race couple. It was in like 1961, so we know how they perceived certain people of certain backgrounds. It would probably be the most stupidest suicidal thing that they could do was then come out and say, oh yeah, by the way, blah blah blah. I think that just, it would have ruined them. So for me, that out of all and everything I've ever heard, that one, that always stays in my head, because I think that that's probably more than likely true.
Yeah, and I would say that for the very same reason, that's why I find the Rendlesham case so fascinating, because there are people there that are staking their military reputations on it, and
yes,
that is an extremely serious thing to do, and that's why a lot of people didn't want to talk until fairly recently, actually.
Yeah, that Rendlesham is interesting. Like when you said about the like it could be a concept of a weapon or something, or some sort of.
It's so difficult. I mean, I've been looking into Gary Heseltine's book on it, which is very good if people wanted to have a read about it. It's got lots of factual details, a bit repetitive at times, I have to say, but it does go through everything, and it looks at later witnesses as well, and it gives a much bigger account of what could have happened, and that there are actually more sightings than we think. But the trouble is, a lot of this information is coming from years later. Some of it is coming through somebody else, and he does acknowledge this, but it's really, really difficult to try and piece together exactly what happened. And all I think we can really say is that something happened that had actually, and I don't think we touched enough on this when we spoke about it, really, that it really affected these people psychologically. And we have to remember the people involved, they were only sort of 19, 20. Even the experienced officers were only in their late 20s. So they're really young people who are out there in the dark experiencing something that's like nothing they've ever seen. And they were absolutely terrified of what they saw. And then on top of that, they were then told not to talk about it to anybody else. There could be any number of reasons as to what it could be. And that's what's so great about it.
Yeah. Mohammed, Phil messaged me afterwards. I didn't actually catch it at the time, but I think Phil sorted out your 24 hours to like a 10-second ban or whatever, but I don't know what it was for. But yeah, we'll keep an eye. Phil will keep an eye on you, mate. I don't know why you were banned or anything. I'm not going to get into ifs, buts, or maybes. Everyone does whatever for whatever reason. That's why they're mods. But Phil will keep an eye on it. Yeah, you are allowed a different opinion. Of course you are. That's what makes it better in the chat. If we all agree, it'd be quite boring in the chat, wouldn't it? Like, yeah, boring. So, yeah, I don't know. But Phil, keep an eye on you, mate. Not a problem. But you let me know by WhatsApp afterwards. So I didn't actually know what was going on.
Yesterday, it was myself and Defiant Fox who agreed on that ban. So I stand that decision along with Defiant Fox.
Right. Okay. Cool. So what's that problem then? I don't know what it was about or whatever. I'm not gonna. Stop me talking. I was angry. Yeah.
Okay. Helen will be here soon. She's in the studio. The phone is.
I literally just about to click on it and she disappeared. They've got her. I told you. They're going to try and shut her up.
Yeah, that's what it is. But hopefully what we can do today is we can hear Helen's story. We can try and interpret it and try and see if we can make some more sense to her. I
Yeah.
mean, who knows what it is? One thing that I think would be really, really useful, though, before we see Helen is, would it be possible to show on the screen the cover of either the book or the film, is the same, for Communion? It's from 1987. Because this is a really, really important image in terms of our context. I'm sure most of the people in the chat will have seen this. Really famous.
Whitley Strieber.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
There's, for some street, there's 3 different books. One with a blue cover. I don't know.
It's
Beigey,
the one that,
weird colour.
yeah, that's the one, I think. It's got just a face on it.
Yeah, they're all the same, but one's blue and one's, I don't know what the origin is. Oh,
I think the original is
yeah,
the
right, okay.
But this is a very, very significant image that many people, even if they haven't seen this cover before, will recognise it. There you go. So that's from 1987. I think when that was first published, it was turned into a film. And this is where the grey aliens typical feature set actually comes from. And it was described in a kind of similar way with the case you mentioned earlier, the Betty and what's his name?
Barney.
Case, Barney. They mentioned
Yep.
something similar with eyes that were kind of leaning backwards. So the idea of it was in that, but it's not really until this image becomes popular that's when you start seeing more ideas of greys coming out into popular culture and becoming a sort of standardized feature. And certainly, I don't know about anybody else, but certainly I can remember when I was much younger going in the video shop and seeing the film version of Communion and that face staring out and just thinking, what the hell is this?
Wow. For someone who's actually nuts about aliens and UFOs, I didn't even know this book existed until right now. I'm just wait. If you want to give me a thumbs up when you're ready there, Helen, because I see you having a nightmare. I'm waiting for you to punch your phone off the desk or something there. But
Phones are a nightmare.
yeah, she's like, I'll tell you, I think the Greys are watching her. They're like, right, we're going to go invisible mode. And when she sets her phone up, we're going to be invisible. We're going to push her phone invisible style. So, whoop, there she is. Right, let's get that down.
Hello, Helen.
There we go. Happy days.
Hiya.
You got there. I was going to say the Gremlins, but we know it's the Greys. They're messing with your technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what it is. You sent the link and my email thingy, it keeps coming up, but it's not responding, the email thing. So although I've come through, I keep getting a wait on the screen, a close app or wait choice. I keep doing wait and it keeps coming up again. So I've got you, but I can't see anything on the screen apart from the it isn't responding, close app or wait.
Right. It all looks fine to me.
Do you want me to put the link in the chat and for you to come in that way so you can see, or are you happy to carry on? What do you want to do?
It's up to you time-wise. If you're happy to spend the time covering, then go ahead. If not, I'll carry on as I am. I have got my tablet down here, so I can sort of look at the screen.
It'd be best because I think it'd be best and fairer for you, so you can see what we can see, because you know you want to see Jake and you want to see me. So what I'll do is I'll put the link up in the chat, and you go through that way, because me and Jake are all right. We've been talking for 15 minutes, so you know it's not a problem. So let me put the link up there for you.
All right.
Bollocks, as long as you.
There we
give
go.
me a moment though, so that I can actually go into. Give me a moment so I can go into YouTube on my phone, so I can get the link. All right.
No problem.
That's fine. Yep, that's fine. That's fine.
Well, as we've got some time, then perhaps might be interesting then to have a look at the context about these features, perhaps for the chat, so they can understand a bit more about what could be going on. And across time, throughout history, people have had very, very similar experiences where they feel a sense of displaced time. They feel perhaps that they have been watched, or that there is somebody that is a presence in the room, or they see humanoid features. And it's something that exists in all cultures. Now, what's interesting about it in terms of context is how that evolves over time. So prior to the 1800s, in Western culture, you predominantly found that the people would interpret these, how can I put it, phenomena in two different ways. They would either interpret it as biblical, in which case they would see it as an angel or a demon, depending on how they felt about the experience, or they would interpret it through folklore, where it would be seen as, or quite often it was interpreted as fairies or pixies or some sort of woodland dwelling creatures. And that is interesting, because if you think about those sort of creatures, they often tend to be very, very small, something that we see associated with greys later on. When you get to the 1800s, there's a big change. And the big change largely comes because of the Industrial Revolution. And so you get people moving away from rural areas into the cities, things become mechanized, and belief in religion starts to decrease because of science and technology. And so what you find at this period in time is that these phenomena tend to be interpreted in terms of airships. And so it goes from being fairies that are seen in forests to then being airships that are seen over forests. And you still get descriptions of things like coloured lights and that kind of associated phenomena. And that pretty much continues until we get to the 50s. Once we get to the 50s, this is where you first start to see the idea of the flying saucer come into being. And a lot of this is to do with the Cold War technology that was around at the time, fears of being infiltrated by the Russians, or of being replaced, or of people being amongst you that are spying on you. And that led to a lot of suspicion, and obviously a lot of suspicion of things like unidentified aircraft. And around this time, you start also to see the rise in the abduction narratives. Now, whereas previously people had been abducted and taken to, say, sort of like a fairy kingdom somewhere, that has now changed to more of a medical setting. And that mirrors the change in, of course, medical progress that had taken place over time. So by the 50s, hello again, Helen. So by the 50s, people were used to things like surgery, and the idea of something like open heart surgery was commonplace. And so people would associate that much more with their experiences. So you can see that it changes over time, but the phenomena is actually the same. And then, of course, this image that we see here from the late 80s, and this becomes the dominant image into the 90s with things such as the X-Files and associated dramas to that. And the reason that this becomes so popular at that time is because after the Cold War, there's a lot of suspicion of US government. And so a lot of these alien ideas are tied in with conspiracy theories or alleged conspiracy theories that were taking place at that time. And so what I think is interesting, for me anyway, as a literary and cultural historian, is looking how the same phenomena has happened across time, but the way it's interpreted by the person experiencing it has evolved over time. And I'm not saying for a moment that we're going to see any of that in what Helen describes to us, but that is, in sort of general terms, a pattern that we tend to see.
Right. I just saw behind Helen there, this round shelf thing. We got two of them by our front door.
Yeah, I collect crystals. And I've got
very
them all
nice.
over the place.
Oh, well,
so, yeah.
Without being rude, your ring is bigger than my ring. That's what I'm saying.
That could definitely be taken the wrong way.
Yes,
it
right.
could.
Am I
it
all
could.
right?
But yep, you sound better as well. Can you actually see what we see now? Like the back end, you can.
Yeah.
As long as it's
it was
better for you.
I'm Gmail, and there was obviously a problem with Gmail. But funny enough, I tried to get on eBay earlier today, and it says their servers aren't working.
Oh. Well,
all this technology.
Yeah. Blame the
Absolutely.
Jews. Blame the Jews. That's how it works.
Absolutely. And I had to make sure everything was in the right place because of this one, because she'll wreck anything. If she'd jump up, and if I've got wires in the way, she won't care. She'll just rip them all out the way and all that. So
fair play.
I have to be careful how I set things up. So yeah. Anyway,
excellent.
you'll have to excuse my nerves. I hate doing
Not
this
at all.
sort of thing. And
absolutely not. Don't be worried about anything. There's nothing you can say is going to be.
I've already cracked one joke. What more do you need? but to be fair though, I find like Jake's quite he's quite good with the questions and everything and that. And when you sort of sit and listen to him, you sort of relax and that. And then before you know it, you start discussing something with him. And before you know it, it's the end of the show. I've had that before because, I mean, I don't try not to go, it's a man thing, but my depression, bipolar and anxiety at times can be a nightmare. But sometimes I've had like, oh, I don't want to go live, and I go live and I'm like, oh yeah, Jake, you can come up. He come up randomly and I got through the show. And by the end of it, I felt normal. So it's just having the right people around. And like I said to you, we're not doing this in any shape or form to catch you out, to make you look silly or nothing like that.
I know.
This is your experience. It's not for us to say it did or didn't happen. I just want to listen. I mean, any of these stories fascinate me. I'm just jealous because it wasn't me. That's what I'm getting at. I'd love to have been abducted as a child and gone around the universe or something, but you know, I had to stay where I was and it sucked. But I was a bit I didn't want to get a misleading title either. So hopefully just saying like I've seen the Greys, they visited that, because I was thinking, oh, I know you said you didn't talk to them, but was there something going on like telepathy or I don't know. But I mean, you know, it's down to you, whatever. Jake, is there anything you want to say before we give the floor to Helen and help her relax?
Absolutely.
Let me show off my hair because my hair's longer than hers. No, it's not. Damn crap.
I definitely understand what you were saying, because it got to 12:30 today and I thought, I don't want to do this. I really don't want to go on the camera today. And then I just thought, stop being stupid, because you know you'll enjoy it when you're there. And it's always the case. And it doesn't feel like you're talking to any more people than are on the screen. So it feels a much smaller conversation than it actually is. And if at any time you want to take a break, or if there's anything that you want to just stop and elaborate on, please feel free to go into as much detail as you wish to do so. And obviously keep to yourself what you want to keep to yourself. Anything that I ask, you will be, not to try and debunk you, but to try and get some more information about it. And then we can talk about possibilities as to what your experiences might have actually been, which I know is what you're really interested in trying to interpret here.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
And if all else fails, remember, you're talking to a bloke, one, who thinks he's a wizard, and two, look, he's got a staff. 49 years old, he's got a wizard staff. I mean, that's got to make you feel better. You're not that bad. But that was for fancy dress for the grandkids.
I know of a woman who she's in America, and she makes staffs, and she makes them with crystals and all sorts of things in them, but they're more along the Native American ones, but they're all to do with energy and stuff like that. Fascinating.
Oh.
So if anyone's stuck for a Christmas present for you,
yeah, that's it. Or just send me the cash and I'll order it myself.
Now, let's talk about these experiences, because I suppose it's probably difficult to categorize what you would really want to call them. Do you remember the first time you ever had this experience?
Okay, so there's two slightly different things that happened. The last experience was very, very different to the previous ones. So the first group of times, it was I'd get woken up by, the main thing I remember is it felt like something was sat on me, and it made it harder to breathe. They weren't massive, they weren't incredibly heavy, it wasn't suffocating me, but it just made it harder to breathe. And I'd wake up sort of feeling a bit like that, and they'd be touching me. So like they'd touch my nose, or they'd touch my hair, or things like that. And I'd just sort of go like that to throw them off and get out the bed and run to my parents' room. I wasn't actually all that young. So, I mean, you picture it and you think of a toddler running to their parents' room, but I was really too old to be running to my parents' room. We moved to the house I was living in when I was 10.
Yeah.
I can't remember how long after moving there it started, but I think I was about 11.
Okay, so
maybe 12.
So just to clarify things at the moment, just so that we've got all of the right details, just to make sure that we're covering everything. So you're saying this is probably about the age of 11 or 12, roughly. And that what would happen is that you would be woken up. Now, when you say woken up, were you woken up or did you wake up and was this happening?
I remember it as the feeling that I was struggling to breathe woke me up.
Okay. Thank you very much. And you said that it felt like you were sat on and it was difficult to breathe. Can you describe what that was like and what at the time you thought might have been happening?
Like I say, it wasn't like there was something really heavy there. It wasn't suffocating. It was just harder to lift. I suppose my diaphragm at that age, I wouldn't have known about that, but just felt like I couldn't lift my rib cage and to get the breath in as easily. I could do it. I wasn't, like I say, I wasn't suffocating or anything.
But it was a struggle to do it.
It was harder to do it. Almost as if, I don't know, it was a heavy weighted blanket type thing across me.
That's very, very interesting. Now, the last bit you mentioned just in this sort of our introduction here was this rather sort of disturbing element of being touched. Now, you mentioned that they would touch your nose, for example, or perhaps an arm or something like this. Was this, I'm trying to think how to phrase this properly. Was this just a sort of like a random glancing of things? Was it a targeted touching of things? Or did it perhaps extend into sort of something inappropriate?
I don't think it was inappropriate, because it was only sort of around the above the blanket area type thing. So it's like they were sat sort of that area.
Yeah.
And they were reaching towards my face and my head and that sort of area.
Yeah.
It felt like it was deliberate touching rather than a brushing of as they moved around.
Okay. Did you feel a sense of, was there any sort of sense of a presence of anything, like of intent or a sensation of what they might actually be doing?
No. Well, now obviously this was a long time ago, so I don't know how much this has come into my thoughts since, but I would say it was playful, like they were a bit mischievous.
Okay. Playful. So you didn't necessarily feel threatened by them?
No, I was terrified, but that was only because there was something unknown in the room.
Okay, so you were terrified by the fact that there was something in the room, but not necessarily by what was happening itself.
Yeah.
Right, that's very, very interesting. So the last question I just wanted to ask before we hear more about them is, you mentioned that you were being touched. Did you see who it was that was doing the touching?
The room was really dark. I had heavy velvet curtains that used to black out the room. I lived opposite a hospital, funny enough, so it was a very bright area. So yeah, we had these really old velvet curtains.
Actually, no. Sorry
Later on, I started sleeping with them open, but at this point they were closed and the room was pitch black, so I couldn't see.
Yeah, no, that is an interesting detail. So we know that it was pitch black in there. Sorry, there were a couple of questions that I'd forgotten that I think might be quite interesting. When you moved house, when you were 10, was that something that you wanted to do? Were you pleased about moving, or was it something that you felt?
Yeah, I was very happy to move to the new place for reasons to do with the old place and the old school. Okay. It was part of why we moved, actually.
So this was very much a positive move.
Yeah.
Because my next question was going to be, were there any events or incidents of a negative variety that had taken place in the house before that you were living in?
As in before we moved there, or to us?
To anyone in the house.
No, not that I know of. I don't think so.
And was there anything that had happened within the family, perhaps an event or an incident that had caused anything negative to occur?
I had a difficult childhood.
Okay.
But it was normal to me, if you get what I mean. Nothing out of the ordinary had happened or whatever. I mean, I had a terrible experience when I was 3 to do with a naughty man. But that was years before, and we already moved a couple of times since then. And yeah, no, I can't. You're sort of thinking triggering wise, aren't you? So
I'm just trying to explore what sort of possibilities there could be for things. And thank you for sharing that detail as well. I know it must be difficult to remember things like that.
Well, yeah, but it's sort of normal for me, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. It's a bit like when people ask me to describe what's it like having narcolepsy. Well, I don't know any difference, so to me it's normal.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
But nothing really stands out though as being a particularly sort of terrible event or anything like that.
No, nothing like that. My parents already felt, not necessarily that I was psychic, but that there was, I suppose I was open to things or whatever.
Yeah.
Because my family was really poor, so when they moved houses a few times, and part of it was because my dad was very, very good at all sort of building DIY type stuff.
Yeah.
So they deliberately target houses that were a bit run down and do them up, because that was all part of trying to just get somewhere in life. And we had moved a few times, and they used to take me and get me to check out the house before we moved to it, to feel what the energy of the house was.
Very interesting.
But was that again, to me, that was just normal, and I didn't think anything of it.
No. Was that something that you yourself were aware of and told them about, or was that something that they spotted in you and told you about?
It was them, I think, as far as I remember.
So they spotted.
I don't remember I don't remember it in a way that at the time it was like, oh, she's different or anything like that. It was just the normal thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. It just, yeah.
Just accepted that you had that. We'll call it gift.
Yeah, I suppose.
No, that isn't very, very interesting.
I sat them down when I was about 7 or so. I insisted that they sat at the kitchen table with me and had a pen and paper. and I went into great depth using diagrams to explain reincarnation.
Wow. Yeah. How did you know about reincarnation at that age?
I have no idea.
Okay. Would you say that as a child that you were an imaginative child?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
did you read a lot of films or anything that interested you in that?
I read a lot. I didn't watch much TV. My dad was funny about children watching much TV.
Yeah. And what sort of books did you like reading? Because I loved reading when I was younger. I would read anything.
Yeah, pretty much. I read Watership Down and The Hobbits and just all the normal type things.
But it would seem to suggest to me that, much like I found myself without knowing that this was the case, that you were actually reading texts that were for a much higher age range than you were yourself at that particular time. So your reading age was advanced.
Yeah, probably.
And that perhaps wasn't always noticed by people who were around you. And like I say, not nor to you, because it's just normal for you.
Yeah, at that age. Senior school, my English teacher picked up on it and helped me a lot. But yeah, still at that age, no, it was just,
Yes, no, I can completely relate to that. Absolutely. So thank you for that. Can you tell us a bit more about the behaviours of these, or no? Before we get into that, no. Tell us a bit more about these earlier experiences, because you mentioned there are two definite groupings, an earlier one and a later one. So let's have a look at the earlier ones first of all. So we know that they come in when you are sleeping, and I take it always occurs in your bedroom when these events happened. You weren't taken anywhere else or anything like that?
No, not that I can remember anything like that, no.
Okay, so can you tell us a bit more about some of the other early experiences and what sort of things were happening, and what your mind was telling you perhaps was happening at that time, or however you feel is the correct way to describe it? If you could just do that, that would be
one experience that stands out that I remember like it was yesterday really was at one point I went to push whatever it was off the bed, and I put my hand out fairly high, but I would say these things were probably about 3 foot-ish, 2.5, 3.5, maybe 4, but around the 3 foot sort of height, simply because laying in bed with 2 pillows, so I used to sleep with my head quite high up, I put my hand out to push them off, and it felt like a watermelon. It was a really funny thing, but I like that dolphin skin, watermelon skin sort of feel, slightly rubbery skin. It felt just like a watermelon as I pushed to push it off.
Do you remember if it was warm or if it were cold?
I don't remember it being any different to skin temperature, if that makes sense.
You could definitely tell it had that texture, the sort of watermelon or slightly rubbery texture.
Yeah. That sort of, you could imagine it squeaking if you rub your thumb on it type.
No, I know exactly what you mean. No, thank you for that. That's an important detail. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. And it pretty much that was, they'd be varying in how quick I pushed them off or whatever, but I'd always run to my parents' room and I wouldn't go back to my room, so I ended up sleeping in bed with them, which of course they were really peed off about because I wasn't little. But they were convinced at that point it was nightmares.
Okay, so
and they pretty much convinced me. I mean, I had that sort of niggle, God, well, it seemed really real, but yeah. they pretty much convinced me. I was waking up from a nightmare and not quite sure when I was awake or asleep, and so I'd end up going back in the room and not sort of being that bothered by it.
Okay, so would you
Hence,
say
I
that,
did keep going back in the room.
so would you say that they felt, from your perspective, did it feel as if they were perhaps sort of delegitimizing what you had experienced, and they were sort of downplaying how important it was?
Slightly, but then I also, I think, thought, well, you know, my parents knew better type thing to a degree, so perhaps it was just a dream.
Okay. Did it feel like an ordinary dream?
No.
Ah, now that's interesting. How do you think it differed from an ordinary dream?
I'm sure I was awake when I was feeling them touching, and when I pushed that, felt that head and that sort of thing.
So
I was absolutely sure I was already awake at that point.
so you had a sense of touch in the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now that's interesting because we don't normally have that in dreams, do we?
Probably not, actually. No.
What else about it made it seem more like a memory than a dream?
When you hear the last experience, you'll understand why now I'm completely convinced it wasn't a dream.
Yeah.
But from what I can remember at the time, I remember thinking, oh, it doesn't seem like a dream. But mum and dad know best, so it probably is. So yeah, okay, I'll go back to the room. And does that make sense?
It does make absolute sense to me, yes. Because I think that what you're saying is that for you there was an experience that was beyond a normal dream, that was something that was important enough for you to remember it and to embed itself in your mind in that regard,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's been explained to you that it was just a dream, and you're finding at that age that conclusion doesn't quite seem to work. Would that be fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you're thinking that no, that's not right actually. There's something else is happening here.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit more about what that could possibly have been, and what you think might have been going on in these early phenomena?
I think there were two beings, and I mean, this is a now belief, obviously. Back then, I don't think I'd ever seen anything about aliens or anything of that sort that I can think of, because I didn't consume much TV. My dad was hyper strict, and yeah. But now I think it was, when you hear other people talk about the smaller type of greys, that fits with what I felt when I put my hand out. That would be that type of head, the sort of size and everything else. I think it fits. And I think there were two beings in my room that were very mischievous and childlike, and doing a bit of poking and prodding, and
Yeah.
you know, that
But
type of
at the
thing.
time, though, when you weren't so, I'm not going to say sure, because again, you're still not sure now quite what was going on. But when you were younger and you hadn't formed that conclusion, what did you think these entities were?
I had absolutely no idea. I think that might be why I believe my parents a bit more about dreaming, because I had no idea, and I you know, they were in my bedroom and the house was locked and all the rest of it, and how could there be anything there anyway?
Yeah. So it was beyond your comprehension. at that age, but it could be anything other than what you had experienced. That must have been quite a frightening experience to have.
Yeah, but it was dumbed down by the way my parents behaved about it.
So they didn't necessarily find that your distress was anything out of the ordinary.
Like I say, they thought I just had bad nightmares.
Yeah, and you accepted that.
Yeah, although I remember it being a bit of a niggle of, it really seemed real. But yeah, I did. Like I say, I just figured they know best. And
yeah.
Did you ever speak to your parents
nothing
later
else
in
made
life?
sense. Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I think
I won't go into that too much at the moment, though, because the last experience changed quite a lot of stuff.
Okay. But at this point in time, you're not sure what's happening. You're accepting that it's possibly nightmares, but you're not really convinced by it. But at the same time, you're frightened, but you're not. It didn't sound like you were terrified by them.
No, in the instance I was, which is why I ran to mum and dad's. But yeah, overall, I was still okay enough to go back to my room at night and go to sleep.
Okay. Was there
so
anything
maybe
else?
sorry, maybe your parents sort of being a bit naive about it and the way they reacted maybe helped you in a way to deal with it. Thinking, okay, I'm a child, it's dreams. Maybe that inadvertently did actually help you, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Okay. Is there any other important details about these early experiences that stand out for you?
No, not particularly. No. I can't remember how many times it happened, to be honest.
That was my next question.
Yeah. It was definitely at least 3 or 4 times. I think it was probably more.
Yeah.
But I can't remember, I can't say, yeah, definitely it was 5 times or 6 times. It's a bit
Do you
of a blur
remember
how often it happened.
Do you remember if it happened sporadically or if it happened in sort of concentrated groups together?
More sporadically, I'd say.
Okay, so it's sporadic. So it could occur at any time. You had no idea when or where it might happen. Okay. Did you ever have this experience anywhere other than in your bedroom?
No, but it would be very unusual for me to sleep somewhere else. And if I did, it would only be because mum and dad were socializing and I'd been parked off with someone else's kids. So I wouldn't have been on my own, if that makes sense.
No, of course it does. That sounds a bit like my upbringing. So yes, I do.
They were very into the music scene, so yeah.
What about other houses that you lived, like, because you just moved? Did anything happen in the previous home or that you can recollect?
No, nothing.
Okay.
And I've had some odd experiences. The previous house, when I was I can't remember how old I was then. 8-ish. I was very poorly, running a temperature, really ill. And in that property, mum had a wool shop and it was at the front of the house. So she needed to occupy me so I didn't get in her way serving customers. We were quite poor, but there was a charity shop a few doors down, so she nipped down to that, and there was a model garden set thing. I'm older than you, so you probably won't remember, but it's the type of thing you'd have a oblong piece of cardboard with stones printed on it to make a pathway, and little plastic stone walls with holes you could plug flowers in the top of and things like that in it. I played with that all day. Anyway, in the night, I used to sleepwalk a bit. That's something that went on for years. And this particular night, after playing with that all day, I went into the bedroom saying, really, really frustrated, saying, I can't move the wall. I can't move the wall. It won't move. Really, really wound up. So they sort of steered me back into my bedroom, put me back to bed, and thought, oh, she's been playing with that toy, not thinking anything of it. Anyway, this house was a corner house of a main road and a fairly busy side road. And it was a very, very long, narrow property. And the garden was long and narrow. And there was a brick wall all down the roadside of it. And it was a heap of rubble in the morning.
The wall was a heap.
The wall was down in a heap of rubble.
And
they'd not heard a car go into it or anything during the night, which they normally, it's the sort of property you would do.
Yeah.
Their bedroom was at the front, but it had a couple of windows at the front and it had a window at the side. And they slept with the door open, and there was another window at the side of the hall. So, they weren't far from the garden wall.
No, well, it has to be said that is highly irregular.
It's a bit odd, isn't it? But possibly just a coincidence. But yeah, very, very odd.
This is what I think is really difficult is finding out what things are and how we interpret them, and all different kinds of things. It's really interesting how for example, two people can have the same experience and yet they interpret it in a very, very different way. It's very, very unique to us, and we shouldn't, as I've said on here before, we shouldn't assume that everybody thinks the way that we think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I know a lot of people would just automatically think that something's hit the wall and it's come down or whatever, but it
just collapsed.
Yeah. But it
could
seems
even have been
coincidence.
It does seem a coincidence, yeah. A very strange thing. I couldn't possibly comment on what may have caused it, but that might have that must have caused you a sort of sense of unease, I suppose, in not knowing what it was.
I don't particularly remember it. I think again my parents probably played it down, but they did tell me more about it later on. They said they found it very weird.
Now, you said that when you were 8...
I'll just say, just to make it so you don't feel like you're the only one. This is I've never forgot it because it's the weirdest thing. You say about that wall, and it literally just jumped straight in my head. Years and years and years ago, I woke up and I was, I don't know, it's just the weirdest dream. This aeroplane was white with red on the back, on the fin, and it took off, then it smashed into something, and then I was walking through all the rubble. What happened? Literally, I think it was 2 days later, there was some aeroplane which was white with red on its back, took off, and actually something went wrong, and it had only been in the sky for maybe 30 seconds, hit a hotel, and I was like, is that what I'll tell you, I've never forgot it because it shocked me, and things like that, you never forget. And that's why I like what you're saying there. To me, some of those stories could be more genuine than fake because it hits you so hard you can't forget it. And if you're going to lie, you're going to forget certain stuff. You can't say the same lie for 20 years. That's why I don't believe Travis Walton, and his abduction. But things like that, for you to say that and you're like, oh yeah, and the wall fell or whatever, to me that was literally the dream I had. So there's got to be something going on this planet with people's minds where something happens. I don't know what it is. it shocked me. I've never even told anyone. I told my missus like at some point. I said, like, don't think I'm nuts, but this happened years ago. I've had other things since, but won't go into them. But there is definitely something there. Like when you're saying that, it sort of led me down a different road where I ended up buying like a book like Confessions of an Indigo Child, and I'm looking into the Rainbow Children, the Crystal Children.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
something, and people laugh at it, whatever. Oh, you're a man or whatever. To a degree, I don't know. It seems to be accepted when a woman says it, but not when a bloke says it. That's what I've experienced in life, and I just live in like a shell. I just close off. I just won't talk about it. But this is my channel, so I can say what bloke right now, can't I? And the fact that you said that, but I just want to say it in a way to sort of back up what you're saying. You know, you're like you said, like when you come on, you're nervous or whatever. And like, I thought, no, let me just throw this in so you know, like, oh, actually, the wizards might be on the same wavelength here. Like, either we're both nuts, we're both liars, or something happened. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that helps you. You can relax a bit.
I can also add to that as well, in that when I was probably about the same age, about 12, I started having these experiences at night time that were terrifying, very, very similar to what you were saying. Instead of touching, it was always pulling back the sheet. And I would try and grab hold of the sheet to stop it from being pulled away. And the other big difference was that there was a sense of just pure evil. That I couldn't see what it was, but I knew that it was not just bad. This was the worst thing ever. Like, it was the most terrifying experience imaginable.
Oh, horrible.
And yeah, it was horrible. So you're not alone in having these experiences, and I couldn't explain what it was. The only way I could comprehend it was I thought that it was some form of like a poltergeist or something like this. That made sense. So I completely understand that these experiences.
Oh, that reminds me, we had furniture moved at that house.
Okay.
Overnight. I'd completely forgotten about that. You just said poltergeist. It's reminded me.
Okay, tell us about furniture.
It was only little things, but a couple of times the dining room, the chairs had been put up on the table. But you know how they used to do it at school when they were cleaning the floors and put the chairs
certainly used to do it in my class. Yes, at the end of every lesson, yes.
Yeah. Well, the dining chairs had been put upside down on the dining table. Something we never ever did. Yeah, just, and then, things moving, like something that lived on the kitchen table being on the kitchen side, and odd bits like that moving about whilst we were all in bed asleep. But like I say, I did used to sleepwalk, so my parents suspected I was doing it
now
in my sleep, but I don't know.
No, it's very difficult to say, isn't it? It's particularly it's hard to remember things from so long ago as well. But you mentioned earlier how when you were 8, you were very unwell. What illness did you have at that time that made you so unwell, if you don't mind? If you do, obviously don't say.
Yeah, it was either a really bad cold or flu or something like that. I remember that I was running a fever, and the only reason I remember is because my parents thought the fever might be what caused me to be almost a bit delirious in the sort of, I can't move the wall type.
Yeah.
So
it was quite a severe virus by the sound of what you had. That must have probably worried your parents a lot, I would imagine.
Not that I remember.
No.
I think they were just sort of, oh, she's ill, do something to keep her quiet, because they were both working.
So you weren't ill very often then, by the sound of it?
I don't think so. I know when I was very young I had like glandular fever and a few bits and bobs, but overall I don't think I used to be. And of course back then you'd have a bad cold, you'd get sent to school with a tissue. I mean,
Do you remember how old you were when you had glandular fever?
Very young.
Very young. Okay.
2, 3, something like that. Yeah.
You don't really remember having it?
No. It's when because I've got ME and fibromyalgia and stuff.
Yeah.
It was one of the things that was brought up that it might have affected my immune system and stuff like that.
Well,
but I don't particularly remember.
I would say that is a very interesting detail, because that is exactly the reason that my sleep consultant has said that I developed narcolepsy was through glandular fever.
Right.
So it does do something to the brain, and I would say it's probably very likely that your fibro could have been caused by something very, very similar to that. And I know what that's like, because my mum has it, and I know how bad it can be in the pain and things like that. So I fully empathise. No, not at all. I mean, I'm not saying that is what happened, but that's what a consultant told me in my case happened. So it's very, very possible. This question might seem a bit strange, but there is a reason why I'm asking it. Were you a large child? Were you a small child? Were you a medium-sized child?
I was large, as in quite tall.
Yeah.
And I developed fairly young, but I wasn't overweight.
Not overweight.
No.
But tall.
Yeah.
Were you noticeably taller?
Yes.
So that must have made you feel kind of a bit like you stood out a bit.
I had at the junior school, I had a lot of problems with bullying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But senior school was fine, but yeah, junior school, it was a bit of a problem.
Yeah. And again, I completely empathise. I've said before, my ex was 6 foot tall, so I know the stigma that goes along with it.
Yeah. I didn't end up overly tall, but I just grew when I was very young.
You grew faster and younger.
Yeah.
When I was caught up eventually.
I was going to nightclubs, including over 25s, when I was 15. So yeah.
It wasn't all bad.
No, absolutely.
Now, is there anything about the earlier visitations that you think is important, or do you think we've covered all the main areas?
Pretty much covered it. The last time that type of experience happened, I think it might have been when I pushed that one off and felt it, and at that point, obviously, I was more convinced it was real.
You actually managed to push it away on that occasion?
Yeah. And so it was a bit harder for my parents. I wasn't quite so convinced. And that's when they then said, well, see if you can sleep with the curtains open. It used to be a bit of a rule, because I used to lay and read books until far too late, if they let me.
Yeah.
Which was part of the thing with the curtains, and it used to be a rule that I had to be in bed and the curtains drawn so I'd go to sleep, sort of thing. And at that point, they then turned around and said, okay, we'll leave the curtains open and see if the light helps, and if you wake up from a nightmare, you might not be so scared, sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I understand all of that stuff. My mother was very very keen on lights being off and not reading or playing guitar late at night, which
yeah.
I didn't care about. I carried on doing it. It was very good for me, because it meant that I learned how to play my guitar unplugged, but with the very faintest of touches. So it helped me with dynamics and with hearing a lot. So I'm grateful for it.
I managed to buy a torch without them knowing about it, and I used to be under the covers with the torch reading a book.
There you go. You see, what could be better? What could be better than all of these great books that you could read? Now, you've mentioned that there's a second period, but was there anything about this last occasion, apart from pushing them away, that stood out for you?
I remember that sort of feeling of panic and wanting to get away and stuff was stronger. I think, and it's only a vague memory, but I think I tried not to run away.
Yeah.
Because obviously my parents would get annoyed. Hence the pushing it off and sort of feeling like I was fighting back a bit, although they weren't necessarily doing anything to make me fight. As in, I honestly think they were being playful as opposed to nasty.
But you found that,
and I've often wondered whether they expected me to wake up, or if it's something that happens and normally they can be there and do stuff and it doesn't wake the child up.
and I suppose that added to the terror, of course, because you're not ever going to know when they're there.
Yeah.
Okay, it's interesting that you mentioned fighting back. I'm guessing that beforehand, when you perhaps tried to touch them, that hadn't happened. You hadn't been able to reach them, for example, or
I don't think I'd ever even tried. I think I'd just literally sort of got myself out of bed and run.
Okay.
As opposed to actually doing something to touch them or, nose over there or whatever.
So would you say that until this point that your role was more of a passive role?
It was just get away. There was something there. I didn't want it to be there, and I'm going.
Now, this is a strange question, so forgive me for asking it, and I hope it makes sense. When you were having this experience, were you aware of yourself, or could you see yourself?
No, I don't think so.
So it was just you experiencing things as you would experience any other experience.
Mm.
And nothing looked out of the ordinary. No. Okay. Thank you very much. So,
once I got my bedroom door open, I'm going to sort of do a brief description of my room because it's quite important in the last experience. But if I I'll briefly go there now. So the house was one of the very, very old-fashioned 3 windows along the top, then a door and 2 windows down below. So the main part of the house was a bedroom and a bedroom with the hall and stairs down the middle, and then what I think originally was probably the sitting room and the dining room with the hall and stairs downstairs. But then an extra room had gone on the back. Whether it was originally built that way or it was added on, I don't know. But it had obviously been a third bedroom and the kitchen, probably a kitchen dining room. But then it had been altered to put an upstairs bathroom in. Still had the old outside toilet and what have you. But an upstairs bathroom, and then a single story kitchen had been added on the back. So the back room had become the sitting room. We had what we called the junk room and the dining room. And then upstairs it was still 3 bedrooms, but my room was at the back. And what they'd done is that squarish room had been split down the middle. So one side was the bathroom and the other side was the bedroom. And it made my room tiny. So it was basically, you had the chimney breast cut in half, and then the inlet was enough space to put a wardrobe. So I'd lay in bed, I'd have the door to my left, and there wasn't enough room to put a bedside table. So there was just a little shelf behind the headboard.
So you could walls either side quite easily.
Well, obviously I was up against the wall that side, and then it was sort of just over the width of the door was the space of the room beside the bed.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom of the bed I had a chest of drawers which doubled as a dressing table and a wardrobe. And there wasn't a lot of space there. And then at the end of the bed on the wall side, there was, you know, the old sash windows, so the top or bottom would slide up or down, and there'd be a bit of wood at the middle of the window, so there'd be 4 panes of glass, and that would be slightly over the edge of my bed, and that was the full size of the room. And these initial experiences, I'd have those curtains drawn, it would be pitch black, but as soon as I opened the bedroom door, the big window for the hallway, which it seemed quite a big window, but it's the same as the bedroom windows, if that makes sense. The curtains would always be open, and with the hospital opposite, that used to be quite light. So as soon as I managed to get out of bed and open that door as I was getting out of bed, then I'd have light.
And light meant
now I really regret it, but I never ever looked back to see what was in my room with the door open with the light, and I so regret it. But at the time I was just so
wanted to get out.
I wanted to get away.
And that's what light represented, that safety for you.
Probably, but you were saying about, did everything seem normal? And it was a case, it was the normal darkness, and then opening the door, and there was the hallway in the light, and yeah, everything was normal, and I could see fine to run into Mum and Dad's room.
Okay. That is very interesting. Thank you for the details there. That is really, really useful. So you mentioned there's a second phase. How old were you when this began, and how did it differ? And could you give us an example of an experience, or a typical experience?
So the next one, it only happened once. It was the last experience I had. That's not to say it wasn't happening, but this particular time I woke up. So I had the curtains open. It was actually summer, because it was really bright and sunny, and but very, very early morning. So yeah, I don't know what time it gets light in the summer, but yeah, it was really early. Parents were still asleep and what have you. And I laying in bed, and I woke up, and I knew there was something in the room. I had that feeling of being watched straight away. And I went from sleep, eyes open, sat straight up. And there was this being sat perched on the dressing table, chest of drawers dressing table. And that's partly why I wanted to describe the room, because the room was so tiny. Although it was across the other side of the room, it was up quite close. Yeah, it wasn't a distant thing. This being was there. And as I was still sitting up and I saw it, and I just screamed at the top of my lungs. I was absolutely just completely horrified, terrified, just there's something in the room again. And I just let rip the most enormous scream. And this being shot towards the window, which also sort of felt a bit like it was coming towards me, because the window was at my feet. Yeah. And it was sort of dispersing as it went across the room. And I assume it went to go through the glass, but it actually took the panel of glass out of the window with it. And that panel of glass dropped. It was a concrete driveway at ground level, and the glass dropped and smashed on the ground, on the concrete.
Sorry.
And again, I shot straight into my parents' room. They were already awake because my screaming had woken them up. But I mean, initially they were just sort of like, oh, yeah, okay, another dream, get into bed. It was still early enough to go back to bed. But in the morning when they got up, obviously the glass was gone. And the thing that finally sort of confirmed it all to me was I was indoors. Dad had gone out to look at the glass and start thinking about sorting the window. Mum had obviously gone round there to see what was going on. I'd gone upstairs, and I'm pretty sure they hadn't realised, because I could hear them talking. They were talking as if I couldn't hear them. And my dad was saying, she's right, you know, that glass came out of that window. It didn't smash in the window and some of it drop. He said there's absolutely no glass around the windowsill or the window frame or anything. This glass came out in one piece and it went outwards. He said it couldn't have been a bird or anything like that because it would have gone inwards.
Yeah. So the whole...
And I could hear the realization in their voices, and I sort of thought, oh, they believe me. You know, at last they believe me.
Finally. Yes. Now, there's several things stand out as being different about this incident.
It was a different being, although I didn't see the beings in the first times. I felt the size and shape of that head. I had quite a good idea of their weight, and like the hands and things with the touching and stuff, I knew they were quite tiny things, but the heads were big for the bodies. I knew there was no hair on the head, and it was that sort of rubbery, smooth type skin. And that's why I had a picture of something along the line of the little greys that people talk about now. Well, probably have done for years, but that I didn't know about. But this being was different. It was taller. And I don't know if it was wearing a cape or it was just because it was dispersing as it went across to the window, whether it was sort of breaking up and there was trailing.
Yeah. Can you describe this other being that you saw? Clearly, for example, could you see it?
Oh, it was bright daylight and it was right in front of me. So yeah, clearly see it. But what I will say was it was extremely brief, because obviously I went from eyes open, sit up, scream, and it went. But it was ugly. There was no hair. It had big eyes, big dark eyes. It wasn't the colour of a person. It was like a dull, not a grey, but it was, I don't know, towards elephant skin colour, I suppose.
Like a pair of old white socks.
Yeah, sort of. But the sort of grey elephants.
Yeah.
That, maybe slightly lighter.
Was it wearing any clothing, do you remember?
I don't know. And like I say, if it was wearing a cape, I didn't necessarily have time to see it whilst it was sat or perched. Yeah. But I saw trailing as it went. But like I say, I don't know if that was clothing or if it was the way it was sort of dispersing as it went across the room.
As it dispersed, did it become kind of like more like a shadow type of a figure that became more translucent, for example?
Yeah.
So almost like it's fading as it's moving.
Yeah, but it's sort of, it looked like it was breaking up at the same time.
Okay.
So almost, although it was going translucent, it was almost as if it was going from a solid to breaking down, like you'd imagine concrete breaking down into a powder, and losing its shape.
Yeah. And this is all happens very, very quickly. So as you see it at the end of the bed, and as soon as you've seen it, it moves.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd also say that, I mean, I'm not saying it was old, because whatever it was, it might be birthed with what we think of as looking old in a person.
Yeah.
But to me, it looked really, really old, really sort of like an ancient, old sort of look about it.
Now, you described it earlier as this sort of elephantine grey. How could you describe what its body was like? Because you told us about the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the body like, and did it have perhaps a biological sex that you could identify?
So, I mean, remembering it was happening very quickly, and I definitely looked at the face more than anything, but I would say it was very, very skinny. What I saw of the arms, I'd say probably again very skinny and long. I don't remember leg-wise. I don't know that I ever had time to sort of see more than the initial before it was going, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense.
How
did it get from the... So it sat on the chest of drawers at the end of the bed, is that right?
It was just about the right sort of height. I'd say it was probably 4.5, 5 foot-ish. Okay. Just as a rough. But going by the height of the chest of the drawers, it wasn't a really tall chest of drawers. It was like 2 drawers and then 2 smaller drawers, so 3 drawer height. Yeah. And it wasn't sat, it was just sort of perched on the edge of that.
Yeah, I understand. So to get from there to the window, would they have had to have gone across the bed?
Just sort of caught the bottom end bit of the bed, yeah. But it was already dispersing and had sort of gone up onto that window.
Would you say that its movement was just like a blur, or was it a deliberate leap, or did it walk, or what do you think would be the best way to describe how it got from where it being perched to how it was at the window?
Possibly more of a leap. It just sort of shot. The start of the movement was possibly a bit of a step, but by the time it got much beyond that, it was already dispersing, so it sort of pushed itself off and then almost became flying, I suppose.
So it looked perhaps like it was an escape movement.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's something that's different as well. You've not had that before, where you've had something that's been there with this sort of evil sense about it that has then taken off.
There was no evil sense. Do you know what? I'd say, if anything, I think it was being protective. I think it was watching over me.
You think that this one was watching over you? Okay.
Again, I was scared because there was something there that I didn't know or understand or whatever. But
you could
there
feel
was no sense of evil or nasty or anything else.
Nothing at all.
I honestly can't say whether I felt this at the time or whether it's since. But if I think of it as being protective, and I can't help but think perhaps whatever these other ones that were there that had been scaring me, perhaps they shouldn't have been there scaring me, and this was an older version or something sat there watching over me, so they didn't come in and scare me. I know that's probably my human brain, but yeah.
No, thank you very much. And suppose the main question to ask at this point is, what did you think it actually was at the time?
I have absolutely no idea. I definitely didn't know of anything to compare it with.
So there's nothing within your realm of experience that could put into language what you had experienced.
Back then, yeah.
Okay, that is very, very interesting.
Tried to draw them, even as a kid.
No, I didn't. Not that I can remember. My parents actually told me to keep quiet about it. And their reasoning was because I'd been bullied at junior school.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was at senior school and things were fine. They said it's better if you don't, because things are going well at school and it's not worth drawing attention to it.
Do you think that was
I think I put it in
Blank
a box.
Faces. Sorry, Blank Faces said in the chat about drawing it, but she's also put here, which also you say this one was more protective, watching over, and she put what, like in a mothering sense. Would you sort of feel it is more feminine than male, or is it just you just couldn't tell? It just felt protective.
Yeah, I honestly, I have no idea about sex. I mean, I wouldn't. It didn't look feminine, but then if it's another species, who knows what difference there is between male and female, if that makes sense. But I wouldn't say of knowledge human-wise, especially as a child at that age, I don't think I would have had a clue whether it was feminine or whatever. Definitely its look and its shape and that sort of thing wasn't feminine. Whether it was a mothering protective or whether it was a male warrior type protection, I don't know. I don't know.
And you screamed at it.
Did it
communicate? Yeah, and it went. Did it communicate with you in any way?
No, I had the feeling it was absolutely shocked that I'd sat up and seen it and screamed.
Did it put anything in your mind, like any picture or anything that you felt calm or you felt well? It seems that this one's done what you normally do. You wake up with the greys and leg it. This time you woke up and it legged it. Reverse psychology. That's what you're doing. Wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I suspect I wasn't meant to wake up and see it. And again, it makes me wonder, when I said about the other ones, about whether children were meant to wake up and see them or feel them or whatever, I do wonder with all of them whether perhaps they're going in rooms of children but children don't see them. So even if you're awake and it's there, that you don't necessarily see it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because it definitely seemed to react in complete shock.
Yeah. And that was the last time that you had this experience.
Mm-hmm. So I think I put it off for life.
And have you told anyone apart from your parents about this experience?
Yeah, it's sort of why in the end I did get involved with like the ufology crowd a little bit, and I've talked about it amongst people. But and I know of other people that have had similar experiences since.
Okay. How did they interpret your experiences?
They think grey aliens, but then it's a community that believe in grey aliens and what have you anyway, if that makes sense. So
yeah. Well,
I don't.
Yeah. When it like you worked out
there's
like
nothing.
about the final, were you disappointed when it stopped?
No, I think I was just glad it didn't happen again because it was scary.
Yeah.
And like I say, myself now, I look back and think, oh, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. But back then I didn't know anything about anything like that, and it just frightened me.
Well,
do you
had
think
no
even now,
awareness, so
do you think, like, looking back now, do you, like, with me, I have a real fear of being duped and lied to, and whenever anything happens, I will literally move heaven and earth to find out if it's true or if it's false. I'm like it even when, you know, you come to sort of Jesus and God and that. I'm like, I don't want to believe in something that, like, when you die, you find out it wasn't true. I'd be gutted, like they duped me. So, do you sort of look back at your experience now and try and rip it apart and, oh, I'm thinking it's great aliens, but was it? And you sort of, you're questioning yourself all the time, and you're always trying to sort of work out, like, but is it? And then you always, for some reason, you do come to the same conclusion. Like, no, I know it was what I'm saying it is. Do you go through that, or?
I do to a degree. I know it happened. I know there was something there. And I've looked at all the things like sleep paralysis and all those sort of things, and it just doesn't seem to fit anything like that. Especially with the fact that the window did end up on the deck, broken. But I'm not. I completely have an open mind about what those beings are. I don't necessarily think they're aliens or anything else. I don't know.
Well,
because
you
I
know.
was thinking when you said about the chest bit, I was like, oh, this sounds like sleep paralysis. And when you said the window, I mean, panes of window have been known to fall out because of the putty, you know, on the old wooden style ones, like the putty can go and they can just fall out. But then there's other stuff that you said, and I'm like, oh, I can't really answer
Well,
that. And it does make you question it. I mean, did you ever think about hypnotherapy or anything like that to sort of bring it out?
I have. I've
Maybe, or
never done it. Yeah, I'd like to do the hypnotherapy, but I don't want to do it remotely.
Yeah.
I want to do it
That
with
makes
someone
sense.
there in the room with me. I don't want to be on my own.
Can I ask you some really specific questions about the experience?
Yeah, just very, very quickly. You say about the putty on the window. My dad was a professional painter and decorator, but back when it was a skill, back when you couldn't go to B&Q and get sort of ready mix stuff and all the rest of it, he could also do all the electrics and the gas and the plumbing and all sorts. He used to go in and completely do house renovations on his own and do the whole lot. And when he'd paint a window frame, he'd also redo all the putty and everything else.
Yeah.
And so I know 100% that putty and everything around that window would have been fine.
It was secure. It was more newer than old looking, basically.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. It'd all been painted. My room had been painted the colour I wanted it and everything else. And my dad did all that, and he would have done it. You know, he'd have done the complete lot. He wouldn't have just gone over the top of it, because that was the only way he could do a job, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I say dad,
makes sense.
Stepdad, but yeah.
Perfectionist, just like myself.
Yeah,
I can't. You
absolutely.
can't cut corners. Do it right or don't bother.
Yeah, that's it. He was very much that way. But yeah, sorry, Jake. Go ahead.
That's quite all right. We've gone over a lot of this already, so a lot of it will just be recapping, but maybe some of it might have triggered some more memories about it. And these are just some things that are related to general experiences in that area, just to see if there's anything that's come up relating to this. So first of all, was there any unusual light involved?
No. The first experience, it was pitch black, and that it was sunshine. I don't think the sun shone directly in that window, but it was bright.
Yeah. Was there anything that suddenly grabbed your attention during these experiences?
Don't think so. And like in the dark room initially, it was the fact there was something sat on me. And yeah, the other one, not really, just that I had that sense when I woke and opened my eyes. I had that
sense
sense
of
I
a
was being
presence.
watched, and yeah.
Yeah, but you can't define what it was, but you know that something was there.
Well, I felt it strongly enough that it made me sit straight up.
Yeah. Now, this last one, I know the answer to this already, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Were there any physical aspects to this experience, such as, for example, any marks that were left on you or anything that happened to objects in the room?
No, nothing that exciting, unfortunately.
Just
I
a
have
window.
since, yeah, I have since wondered, just purely because of my age, whether it's got anything to do with puberty as an attraction or something.
Mm-hmm.
As in whether our energies perhaps alter.
Well, most poltergeists tend to happen to teenage girls, so there could well be something in that. So just continuing here, we're looking at, those are the sort of things that I would say would have been like triggering events. So the next questions are going to be more to do with perception. So did you feel a sense that the atmosphere had been altered in any way?
Not that I can remember, no.
No? So there wasn't any sort of sense of a haze or a distortion or anything like that around the room that you were in?
No. And the other thing, I mean, I've heard experiences talk about smells, and I don't remember any smell or anything either.
And how long did these experiences last for, roughly?
As in each individual experience?
Yeah.
They were quick, but because I was trying to get away. It's another thing I wish if I'd hung around, perhaps I could have found out. It may have gone on longer and I could have found something out, but at the time I was just intent on getting away.
And were they always in the evenings?
Yeah.
And if so, did they occur at any particular time?
I don't think I ever took note of the time.
Okay.
But the ones where they sat on the bed were, from what I can remember, still dark compared to the other one where it was light. But then it may have been that they were winter and it got dark later. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you for that one. Did you have any sense? No, I've already asked that question. Sorry. You said that there was a sense of a presence or an intelligence. Now, you've mentioned a humanoid form and the rubberized skin that you felt, but did you actually see anything in those early experiences? Or was it, so it was an instinct?
It was pitch black. I couldn't see. I was just going completely on feel.
And it was instinct.
And the sense of what was there and that sort of thing, yeah.
And your natural instincts told you that what was there was quite a small being that was next to the bed.
Yeah, plus the time when I pushed out, that was obviously a head and it wasn't very high up, so they couldn't have been tall.
No.
They were sat on the bed and it was within reach, so yeah.
That's how, I tell you, like, listen, mate, every time you say that, I get it in my head that like there's aliens in an aircraft shooting off, and one of them's like, "Can't believe it, mate! She actually pushed me." You know what I mean? Like, why would you do that? Do you know what I mean? Push me right my head. You poke my eye out, mate. And the other's like, "Well, we shouldn't have been there. Quick, go!" I don't know. That situation just goes through my head. Like, it's always funny. And they go back and go, "Oh, he actually got touched by the human," and everyone's like, "Wee, what was it like?" And oh, it's like touching like something really soft, like a marshmallow. And they'd be like, "We're aliens. We don't know what marshmallows are. What are you on about?" But I don't know. That's how my brain works. Because they'd be saying like, you know, you're saying, "Oh, his head felt like a watermelon." They'd be going, "Oh, her hand felt like, I don't know, a pepperami. I felt a finger. It's like a pepperami. Do you know what I mean? Like they're going to be having their version of this discussion. Like, but you know, say what your hand felt like. But just my brain's weird. But one thing I did want to ask, obviously, as we go through life and we have injuries and that, have you ever had X-rays and then anything's ever shown up on an X-ray? Because there was these little chips that people found in their skin and they moved.
Yeah.
I mean, anything like that, or anything like in you that should not have been under your skin, or anything like that, or have you ever felt something? Oh, I wonder what that is. I'll cut it out.
No, and I've had quite a few scans and X-rays and things. So I'm trying to think
never said
if there's any bits of my body that haven't been scanned or X-rayed.
I mean, like thinking if you had that, like say if you go to one tomorrow and they, you know, say like you know your shoulder or whatever, and they're like, oh, we're doing X-ray because it could be arthritis or something or whatever, and then they turn around and said, oh, you've actually got something in that X-ray that shouldn't be there, and there's something there. Would you actually think to yourself, oh my God, it's from that, and that validates everything I said, or would you just be a bit like dismissive? I mean, obviously,
nowadays,
I know, but
I'd probably be thinking straight away, could it be?
Because something like that, then straight away, everything you said, you could be thinking, right now, I could physically put this in a book because I have proof. Whereas at the moment, me and Jake are here listening to you, and even you must admit it's hearsay, and you think, oh, if only I had some evidence. If I had the evidence, and then like if you had an X-ray and something come up, you'd be like, I can't believe it. It you know, it will validate what I know now as well.
Yeah, knowing what I know now, when that window came out, you know, now I sort of think I wish I knew someone like, I don't know, the Nick Pope of whatever back then was.
Yep.
I wish I'd made a phone call to them, sort of thing, and had them come out and look at it. But obviously,
did your stepdad
didn't
never
know
say
anything then?
No. Did they ever say anything about the glass? Was there anything on it that shouldn't have been on it, or was it just like as if it had been untouched? There's no residue or smudges or anything on that glass that your stepdad would be like, oh, that's weird.
I think it was pretty smashed up, so I don't know if anything would have shown anyway.
Yeah, probably got shattered falling that sort of distance. It was worth a shot.
Well, yeah. But I'm pretty sure that it was doing that dispersing thing to go through the glass. And it got it wrong, whether it went too fast or whether it was something to do with the energy of my scream or what happened. It took the glass with it instead of dispersing and going through it.
But that's some technology though, isn't it? To go through something.
Is it technology or is it some sort of, I don't know, spiritual
antimatter or
ethereal thing where they can go through solid matter or something? They break down their molecules or vibrate them a lot faster or something.
Well, I think that there is an argument that we could put together that can explain what has been going on. That doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that you'd be prepared to accept it either, but there is an argument that is definitely formulated based on the evidence we've shown today.
LSD in it. LSD. I know where you're going.
I would say,
sorry, Ellen. Sorry.
that based on my own experiences of it, this is 100% sleep paralysis, guaranteed. And the reason, I'll go through the reasons why I'll say that, and I know that you probably agree with that, but the reasons that I would say is the first thing, and this really stood out to me, obviously I'm not going to just make out that this is some magic trick or something. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. I'm only interpreting what's been said. First thing is, you mentioned that when you were younger, you would sleepwalk. So straight away, that would tell me that there were times when you would have a disturbed sleeping pattern. Now that could be caused by external events. You've mentioned how that there was some bullying, for example. I don't know if it could be linked in with that or anything like that. We can't really speculate. But what we can say is that we know that there were instances where you had disturbed sleeping patterns. So that began when you were young. It could possibly be linked with the glandular fever as well, which again I mentioned is what kick-started my condition. Could well be the same in yours. When you mentioned the last occasion when you said that there was a presence, that straight away I recognised that is exactly what happens in sleep paralysis. You can't explain what is there, but you can just feel that there is something there. And what I think is interesting is that I also had an occasion where I thought I saw the figure that was in my sleep paralysis, because like I say, I was convinced it was a poltergeist, and it would, and this was because it would follow me around. So wherever I moved, I would have the same experiences, and it always was exactly in the room that I was in, just like you were describing yourself. It's your bedroom, it's not you're anywhere else, so you're familiar with it. And so that happened with me quite a lot, and it was really, this is where I was surprised. Your interpretation was that they were quite playful, even though it was scary, that they didn't mean any harm. Whereas in my one, it was completely the opposite, where I knew they meant the worst kinds of harms imaginable. So I thought it was really interesting how our two experiences differ there. The other thing that really stood out in the last, or in a couple of the occasions, was that you mentioned pushing it away, and you mentioned being able to fight back. And both of those things really stood out to me, because those are the things that I learned how to do. Because when you're in that situation, as you described, you felt a sense of panic, you had a sense of wanting to get away from it, and it seems that you made some attempts to do that. And what I would say here, and this is from experience as to why I would say this is true, and it's to do with the geography of your bedroom, is that I think that when you touched the head, or the alleged head, I think that probably what happened is that most of your body was paralyzed, but not all of it. So, for example, your fingers might have been able to move, and you can touch, for example, the wall or the side of the bed or something like this. And the reason that I'm mentioning this is because I have woken up convinced that there is a woman lying on my face, and realized that I was touching my hair. And I could feel it, and it was the hair on my face. I thought someone else was doing it. And so I know from experience as well that I've woken up and my hands have been like this, and I felt that I was holding on to somebody. So I would guess that a part of you, and all of this would happen really quickly because you're waking up. And I think that a part of you was able to touch something, and it gave you that sensation. And then on the last occasion, I think that probably, if it's sleep paralysis, then absolutely you get that experience of seeing something and knowing that you shouldn't be seeing it, and that it's something that people don't normally get to see. But I think that on this occasion, that because you'd had it before, and because you'd kind of humanized it in a way, which is of course what we always do, because that's what we expect, I think that perhaps on the last occasion that you saw a visual stimulation, because you had in your subconscious an idea of what this might be, and so that it momentarily, it looked like what it was. And sleep paralysis is something that can occur when we're falling asleep or when we are waking up. And it's called hypnopompic or hypnagogic, depending on which way round it is. I forget which word applies to which one, but it's those two. And I've found quite often that I've learned that when I'm falling asleep, if I'm on my back in particular, I quite often will get sleep paralysis. And I find that I usually have it more when I'm falling asleep than waking up, but it does happen. And what often happens to get it is you have a disturbance in your sleep. So you might wake up slightly earlier than you normally might. And sleep paralysis is actually a glitch with our brains. So our brain is never really fully asleep, but it works on a limited sort of processing power when it is sleeping. And obviously, to stop us acting out our dreams, our bodies are paralyzed. And when we're waking up, sometimes our brain glitches and we get stuck in between the two worlds. So we've only got a slight amount of touch and a slight amount of perception. And our amygdala is firing off these fear sort of neurons around our brain. But the logical part of our brain is still asleep. So it can't interpret it accurately. And so the brain trying to sort of work its way around this interprets it as it must be a person doing it, first of all, because otherwise, what else would it be? It's something that is in my house, so it must be an invader. And instantly you're panicking and you want to get away from it. And I noticed over time, because this it causes terrible problems. It really is like having the worst nightmare ever. But it wasn't until I got diagnosed with having narcolepsy and I was told that was sleep paralysis that it actually made sense to me that that's what it was. Because at that point, once I knew what it was and had made peace with it, I realised that if I shouted at it, I could wake myself up and it would go away. And so now sometimes I will wake up anyone in the street with a blood-curdling hurling abuse at this thing, and it wakes me up, and I understand it now. But for years I didn't. I was convinced that it was some sort of spirit or something like that, and that's a sort of a cultural, I guess, way of interpreting it. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that this is 100% what has happened to you. I'm saying that it 100% matches the experiences of sleep paralysis and the ones that I've had myself. And specific features that you mentioned that would tie it in to make me think that it was sleep paralysis were, if I just go back to this for a second, it was the breathing aspect. That was the bit that really made me think, first of all, that this must be sleep paralysis, because often people feel that there's a sensation that somebody is sitting on them and it's restricting their breathing. And in reality, what it is that your brain is still in sleep mode, and so your breathing is much shallower than it normally would be. And then once you become fearful and your breathing speeds up, you've got very fast, shallow breathing, which feels like suffocation. And I haven't had that myself, but it must be a horrible, horrible feeling. And throughout history, people have had these experiences. It's been described as many things, like an old hag, for example, was one that would come in and try and steal your soul and things like this. It's something that a lot of people will experience at least once in their lifetime. Like I say, I get it more often because I glitch more often, because I'm more often in between REM sleep and being awake. So for me, it will occur much more often. It's like a switch that comes on that will just happen. But what I think is interesting about your case and my experience is that both of us felt that it was very, very human. And that is a really interesting way that we adapt, I think, to sleep paralysis. Fortunately for me, the second time I went to have sleep tests overnight, I actually had a sleep paralysis attack whilst I was there. And so I have got it in my notes, a recorded one. And so that I can assure you that you can definitely see a spike in, like the brain waves moving. It is definitely something that is real. And so that has made me think over time that what happens is we have this terrifying experience that we don't really know how to understand. So our brain understands it in the best way that it can at that time. And often that is something that is seen as being negative or terrifying or scary. But when you can understand what it is, it's less terrifying, because then I've found in my experience, I can now tell myself, no, this isn't real, just shout at it and it will go away. And perhaps if you were to have the experience yourself again, you might be able to do the same thing. But that's supposing that it was this explanation. I mean, it could well be that you are visited, but I would say that it ticks so many of the boxes that are in here that's what I would suggest it was. And the window pane is a really, really interesting one. The only thing I can really say about that is when I lived on Rochester High Street, I had those sash windows, so I know exactly the ones that you mean. And opposite me, there was a shop with a flat above it. And one night time, a whole pane in the middle of that window fell out and onto the high street, which obviously could have killed someone if it were in the daytime. So that can happen over time, and I think it's more to do with the wood deteriorating over time. That could explain that one. But of course, if you've had an experience that feels and is the very real experience, because it to us it is, but there's no other way of describing it. It is something that really happened. then obviously associating that with this window pane coming out, as that's where you saw the entity exiting, would make perfect sense. But
what about as a counter argument? What if said beings and the extraterrestrials understand humans, our biological state, this, that, and everything else, and then they project onto Helen what she would think would be sleep paralysis when it's not, because they are causing that. So when Helen then says to someone, I'm having this, this, and this, they go, that's sleep paralysis. And that way, the said extraterrestrials have got away with doing what they've done. Is that possible?
Anything is possible in this conversation. I couldn't possibly say it, but it just seems to me that from my experiences of it and having had it quite often, it seems very, very much to match almost to 100% the symptoms.
Go on then, Helen. What do you think? Has Jake just ruined your life in one fell swoop?
No, not at all, because it's definitely something I considered. It was
exactly.
Something,
you've heard it before.
You know, I've heard about it, and that's why I sort of looked into it a bit. But the things that made me feel, well, obviously the window, but apart from that, the things that sort of stopped me, or not necessarily stopped me thinking it's sleep paralysis, but made me think I'm not sure about that, was the feeling something was sitting on me. Never felt suffocating. It just meant it felt like there was a weight to lift on my chest.
Yeah.
I had that when I had a heart attack. Literally that feeling. It was like someone, like it was like a knee being put on my sternum, and it was just crushing me, and it just hurt. Like the pain radiated out from it. And you know what people say you have and what you don't have at a heart attack. They got that wrong, but blimey heck. But when you said that, I was like, that's what jumped into my head. Like when you have a heart attack, like that sort of pressure. And then when Jake says about sleep paralysis, I was like, oh, possibly, because I said sleep paralysis, didn't I? But I mean, it's your experience. I mean, blimey, I pray you've never had a heart attack, so you don't know.
I suspect what you're describing was more severe. This just felt, well, like I said before, like a weighted blanket, just something heavier on your chest that you. And if there was something there, whatever it was, wasn't very heavy. It wasn't very big. It wasn't very heavy. It wasn't suffocating me. It just meant there was a weight to lift right on the wrong spot, if that makes sense. So it just made it an effort to breathe rather than suffocating.
Yes, absolutely. Which would fit with the shallow breathing that you would be experiencing if you were in REM sleep, for example, and you weren't quite awake yet. And your mind wouldn't comprehend that and interprets it as something sitting there, because obviously most of the things that we see around us are interpretations. We don't actually see everything there. Our brain is filling in details constantly. And so if it's distorted, like it would be, and when it's glitching, then that's why we can sometimes have experiences that seem more than they actually are. Because whilst we experience them, these are a very real experience that is as real as a real experience. It doesn't feel like a dream. I'm sure you would attest to that. And that's what's so different about it, and what I think is difficult for people to understand who haven't experienced it, is that it sounds like, oh, sleep paralysis, yeah, fine, whatever. Doesn't sound like it's anything bad, but I think they really need to understand that it is an awful, awful torture to feel that helplessness, I think.
It felt like a cat laying on my chest.
Yeah.
On my ribs sort of area. But there was never ever a feeling of struggling to move. I never struggled to move or get out of bed or sit up in the last experience or anything like that. There was never a feeling of helplessness, not being able to move, anything like that at all.
And that is one thing that does stand out in here as an anomaly, with it being sleep paralysis, and there normally is that sense of being paralyzed, which could be simply just that your mind hasn't interpreted it as malevolent, and that perhaps when you were waking up, perhaps you had more movement than perhaps for example, I might have, which could explain why you'd be able to move your arms, for example, or something along these lines.
Yeah.
But I'm not, again, I'm not saying this to be dismissive of your experiences at all. In fact, I think it's a really fascinating thing, and I love to talk about it, and it's great because not everyone does experience it. But that would be my conclusion. I don't know if that would be if you would agree with it. And of course,
Like I said,
that's
I looked into it before, and what I've read, it doesn't feel as though it fits. Plus the window.
yeah. Now the window is the interesting aspect here, because that again, I think, could come down to how we interpret things, because it could simply be the case that maybe in the middle of the night the wood expanded enough for the plate to just fall out. I mean, I know it sounds unlikely, but that is what happened with the shop
Hell of a
opposite.
coincidence.
It is.
And especially things like I say, I mean, my bedroom never got painted.
Yeah.
Until Dad had time to do the whole thing, and he did all the woodwork and the windows and everything else, and so the putty would have been fresh. He wouldn't paint a window without taking out old putty and putting new putty, and
No, of course not.
you know, it just all would have been in good shape. So
yeah. And were you aware of? I mean, you mentioned a lot about reading before. You mentioned you didn't really watch much television, but were you aware of things like space aliens or anything along those lines?
I don't think I was. I don't remember. I mean, I'd watched some cartoons, I suppose, back then. But I definitely didn't watch any films or anything.
Because I just think that our experiences, our cultural experiences, shape what we perceive in that particular moment. And I was brought up going to a Catholic school and brought up to believe in the supernatural very, very much. So for me, it was straight away that I can see why my mind would process that as a ghost. And I was just wondering if perhaps in your interpretation, the only thing that would make any sense to you in that moment would be for it to be something that was non-human.
I don't know. I know I knew about ghosts. And I mean, I never considered it being a ghost.
Yeah.
But from what I remember, I don't think I considered it as anything in particular. I don't think there was anything that I registered in thinking that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say if somebody asked me what it was, I would struggle to describe it, but that would be the only word I'd be able to use that I think people would understand. The other thing I mentioned, I asked a strange question earlier about could you sense yourself being there or see yourself? And that's because sometimes when I have it, I get a sense of being able to look down upon myself, almost as if I've entered like a fourth dimension or something, where I can both experience what I'm experiencing and at the same time watch it. It's really hard to explain, but
I used to do that on completely different occasions, where I used to, which I've always assumed was a dream. I used to leave my body and go out and fly all over the place.
Yeah.
And I would be aware of my body in the bed when I left it and things like that. But there was none of that during those experiences.
Do you sleep regular hours and do you sleep well?
It's a bit hit and miss now. Back then, like I say, I always had problems getting to sleep, but it was always regular. I mean, I had my bedtime and strict parents, and yeah.
No, that does make perfect sense, because what I think is really interesting, and I don't know why we do this, but our brains register dreams as being really emotionally important events. And it's always struck me as odd. Why do we remember dreams if they're only a construct in our brain? There's no point to us remembering them. So what actually are they? And I don't know the answer. I wish I did know the answer, because I'm fascinated by them, and luckily for me, I get to have lots of them. So I'm grateful for that.
I used to dream a lot, but I never ever dream at all. I haven't done for years now.
Do you have a lot of medication to take because of your condition?
Yeah.
That's probably why.
Yeah.
What I
More
would
than
guess
likely.
is, from what you've said just then, what I would guess is, and this is just purely based on how I sleep, I find that if I wake up and then I keep falling back asleep and waking up again, you know, like drifting, that's when you dream the most because you're in and out of sleep. Whereas if you take medication, it just knocks you out.
Yeah.
So you don't get that. And I would, just based again on my own experiences, I would say that perhaps you have a slightly disturbed sleeping pattern that occasionally causes these glitches to happen, such as the sleepwalking as well would be another manifestation of that.
Mm-hmm.
And there could be something like, because you mentioned that you don't have it now and it hasn't happened recently, so it could maybe even involve something like a mild sleep apnea or something like that, a temporary breathing difficulty.
Once I grew up, I never sleepwalked. I never, from leaving home, sort of thing. I never slept walked or sleepwalked again.
Yeah.
That was definitely a childhood thing.
Which could theoretically, I suppose, be linked to some of the social experiences that you'd had that weren't necessarily favourable ones. It could have been, could be some form of that. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, so I can't adequately explain it. Like I say, I'm a literary and cultural historian, so I can adequately explain it in those regards, but not psychologically. But
yeah.
That would be my best guess. But it's just such a really, really interesting story, and you know I'm really glad that you shared it with us today, because it's not easy to come on and talk. It's certainly not easy to come on and talk about something that's personal like this, because you know you're opening yourself to ridicule over it, really, and I hope today that you feel that we've been very, very thorough and respectful in our discussion.
Oh yeah. No, it's fine, and I mean, I don't expect people to believe it.
Oh no, I believe
sure,
you 100%.
I'm sure some people will, but generally I don't expect people to necessarily believe it, because I'm the sort of person that, had I not experienced it, I wouldn't believe it. So
I absolutely believe
yeah.
100% that you had those experiences. But where I would disagree, well, not disagree, where I would differ is the interpretation of what that experience was.
I know. I mean, again, in ufology, I've come across a lot of people thinking these types of experiences are sleep paralysis. But I mean, somebody I have spoken to who had greys in their room as children, they're twins, and it happened to both of them, and they both have the same experience. So
Yeah.
I can't see that one being sleep paralysis.
No.
And they said they were like little greys, and they were full of fun. They were like kids.
Yeah. I mean, and it could well be greys, for all I know. All I'm saying is that this argument would fit logically, and it would make logical sense. But it could be that, and I think, you know, we've got evidence where we could argue and say, yes, this would fit with it being sleep paralysis. As a best fit diagnosis, you know, if we were a doctor, we would say, yeah, you would probably go along with that one. But that, of course, that framework doesn't allow for things that exist beyond what we naturally know occur. And so within the frameworks that we know of, I think that this one would fit.
Except that there was no form of paralysis, and the window got, well, appeared to be pushed out before it broke.
Yeah, that is a strange aspect to it. And for that, I'm not sure that there'll ever be an answer.
Keeps it interesting though, doesn't it? But it's good sometimes. It's best not to have the answer. Do you know what I mean? Because maybe you're like me, Helen. You don't want to find out after all this time. Say if it was sleep paralysis, you'll be like, "Oh my god, my brain has literally lied for me."
Well, no.
How many years? I'll take that feeling. I'll be like, "No, I got it wrong." But I suppose you'll be happy to know the truth.
Yeah, it wouldn't bother me, because I realise the brain's a really complex thing. It's just, you know, it's one of those things. It is, and I know it definitely
but I think we're all just too old to make things up now. Do you know what I mean? It's, you know, I won't look at you and think, oh, here comes Helen making it up. Do you know what I mean? We're at an age now where, like, you know, as a kid, you could say, you know, I shook hands with ET and we went down the Lemon Road and bought a soda or something. Do you know what I mean? You think, mate, you're 12 years old, you're full of it. But at this age, like, I think Jake's asked very sort of, not intrusive, but very like blunt questions that can get good answers. And us as adults and mature people can look at it and think, oh, and there's things that even I mentioned sleep paralysis a bit earlier. I thought, oh, that's ringing in my bell. And then you'll say something else, and I'm like, oh, maybe not them. So there's something there.
I do think that the majority of the times in these sort of experiences, when they're involving waking up, that it is sleep paralysis.
Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily...
I completely agree with that. But Jake, when you said that you thought you saw a figure or something, were you already moving and sort of, or were you paralyzed at that point?
It's a really difficult way to describe it. It was... I can only really describe more what I did in response to it, I suppose, is that I felt like I couldn't speak. That's the thing that I couldn't notice normally. It's not so much movement, it's I can't actually speak. And I saw it was like a translucent, it looked like a mannequin really, but it was translucent and it was in a crowd. And that was what was unusual about it, because it's always in my bedroom, but this time it wasn't. And I saw it there, and as soon as I saw it, I thought I knew what it was. And I thought, I'm going to fucking have you. And I went in, as Casper Side would say, and I Rambo'd it. And that's how I woke myself up from it, because I recognized what it was. And that was the first time I actually felt, wow, I can conquer this. I can actually do something about it. Because it wasn't anything that I certainly didn't tell anyone about it, not until I was in my 20s or 30s. I mean, I didn't want people to know that sort of thing. It's too private. So, like I say, I completely understand where you're coming from with all of it.
The reason I asked was because when I did see that one, I woke and opened my eyes and sat up freely. So I wasn't paralyzed at that point. So I sat up, saw it as I sat up, and then screamed, and I screamed freely. So there was no paralysis involved with that. And I know from nightmares that I have had later in life, that you're trying to scream when it's a nightmare, and you're trying so hard to scream and you can't.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was living with someone at one point, and they woke me up several times because they said you were obviously having a nightmare and you were obviously trying to scream. They said it was like your mouth was shut, but you were doing that sort of type thing. So they woke me up.
That would be sleep paralysis. Yeah.
Yeah,
but used to do that.
But in that experience with whatever it was, if it was, it didn't happen that way at all. I opened my eyes, feeling watched, sat up. As I sat up enough to be able to see it, I saw it and screamed, and there was no difficulty in any of that, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. I mean, I suppose what we could question is whether or not, I mean, what you described then sounds very much like sleep paralysis, but on those occasions, it doesn't sound like you yourself would remember having the sleep paralysis. It was someone else observed it and told you afterwards. Yeah.
I remembered the nightmare. I knew when they woke me up, I knew I was waking up out of a nightmare.
Yeah. So what I'm kind of getting at, although not doing it very successfully, is wondering whether or not you can, whilst you're asleep, whether or not you are able to distinguish between sleep paralysis and a different experience. Because that's something I'm sure you probably can't answer, but if you could, it would be really, really great. Because then you'd have a baseline for what sleep paralysis actually is. So you'd know if it were different. So that is a tricky one. I appreciate that.
I do know when he woke me up. I mean, I knew I was in a nightmare. I knew in that nightmare I couldn't move and I couldn't scream, and I was trying to.
Yeah, the horrible feeling.
Yeah. But then, like I say, that completely different to the time when I felt like I was wide awake and I had no issues with moving and screaming.
Yeah. No, that is really an interesting anomaly that is in there, and I can't account for that, of course. So I don't know, but I know you were very keen on being able to get some answers today. Has going over it again given you any clarity over anything?
Not really.
No.
No.
You're no closer to understanding it than we were.
No. I mean, I am aware that sleep paralysis is a possibility.
Yeah.
But just like I say, when I have sort of read up on it and heard people speaking about it and stuff, those few things just don't seem to fit it quite.
Yeah.
But who knows?
I know.
At least you're open-minded, though. There's other people like, no, and they start getting all bolshy and offended. At least you're like, oh, yeah, it could be a possibility, but there's bits that don't fit in. I think, to me, you come across like a bit more realistic about it. Yeah,
that's what I would say as well. Yeah, I would say exactly the same thing. I would say that you have had experiences that are difficult to put into language, but they have many aspects of sleep paralysis. But there are anomalies in there that can't be accounted for that could mean something else. I think is probably the best description.
Definitely. I genuinely hope, for your sake, Helen, that it was an extraterrestrial experience, because I think that'd just be absolutely amazing, and people like me would just be jealous of it. You know what I mean? So,
even if I was visited by beings, grey-type beings, that doesn't mean to say they're extraterrestrial.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't mean to say they're not here all the time, either on a slightly different vibration, or maybe they live underground, like the South Americans call them ant people, don't they? They're natives in the Amazon and various places. They call them ant people. They say they live underground.
Yeah.
So, if they're real, they obviously go through solid matter, because they were getting in and out my room with the door shut and what have you. And listening to other people's experiences. And if that dispersing thing was meant to be for it to go through the solid matter, the glass, maybe it is a vibrational thing. So people call it dimensions, but it's not necessarily a dimension as such. It might just be a different speed or vibration or something.
Yeah. No,
who knows?
I very much have looked into this, and it is a fascinating area of study. It really is. And it certainly could account for things like the Islamic jinn or demons or angels or today aliens, because there are so many things that we experience all the time that we can't actually see or hear that are constantly around us. It's perfectly plausible that there could be beings that are existing right in front of us all the time that we cannot see or activate with, but who can see us and who can activate or interact with us. And I certainly wouldn't rule that out either.
Cats certainly seem to think so.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. I think the best part of the story, in a funny kind of way, is like you get visited by possible extraterrestrials, and Helen literally just blew chance after chance, ruined it for all humans because she just got up and legged it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you could have. Oh, mate, well done, Helen. You got your opportunity and you blew it.
I know. I wish I knew then what I know now, because I could have made use of it and possibly learnt something.
Well, perhaps we can have a discussion in future about some of the other things that you've learned, and about your time in ufology and things such as that. That could also be a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, possibly. Probably not, though, to be honest. I think
No, you don't want to
sort of dabble a bit,
Yeah,
don't they?
that's what I mean. Helen doesn't mess about. Like, do you know what I mean? She's so like, just says it the way it is. It makes what you say more credible, because you're just like, nah, it's probably quite boring, actually.
sort of answer I would give to things as well. So good.
Yeah,
Nice.
but so you're not trying to make it all out like so it's super special and all this and that. Do you know what I mean? Like people are like, oh, it's the best thing ever, and they try to sort of take cash in on it or whatever. You're like, no, I couldn't tell you about my UFO experience. It's probably quite boring.
Well, it isn't. I mean, you hear all these people in ufology coming out with this stuff, and they did speak to them, or they had, telepathy with them, and they got abducted and got taken into UFOs and all this, that, and the other. And I mean, they were there and I ran.
Yeah.
It's not exactly on the same level, is it?
Yeah, no. I meant in terms of like a general discussion about what they are and what they could be, and how things have changed over time. That's what I was getting at. Your actual knowledge of the subject, and talking about what that sort of thing. But only, of course, if it's something that you would find interesting.
Happy to talk about it. Happy to talk about most things, really.
Yeah.
I did have a daytime experience that was possibly a cryptid experience. Although I'm not sure, because again, I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
But I was probably about 14 by this point, maybe 13, and I'd actually got a pony, even though we were really, really poor. My dad picked up a pony for £50. And I used to go and work from 8 till 6 on a Saturday in a greengrocer's and pay for its keep on a farm and everything.
Yeah.
Grew up Bournemouth area, so all of this sort of thing happened down there. But it was sort of on the edge of the New Forest. And that there was this area that I rode in that was quite wooded. Fairly narrow paths. Most of them were fairly narrow paths through these woods. And glorious, hot, sunny day, I was riding the pony along this path. And I felt there was something in the trees. There was no path in that part, but there was something in there. And there was the odd twig being broken and the sort of noises you'd expect if you heard something going through fairly dense, like conifer, sort of pine tree conifer type woods. The lower branches get quite dry and they snap quite easily, don't they?
Yeah.
So that sort of noise, and whatever it was got a lot closer and I could hear it breathing. So I sort of thought, I'm not going to hang around. So I sort of cantered up the path on the pony. And then whatever this was, if there was something there, seemed to stay fairly level with us, but in amongst the trees. And you could hear, again, twigs, not great big branches, not like oak trees with big solid branches breaking, but the finer sort of small parts of conifers snapping, and this breathing that got heavier and stronger going up this path. And then I started to get really scared, so then I sort of took off as fast as I could on the pony and did seem to leave it behind.
But it seemed like, was it
freaky?
It was following you then, stalking perhaps?
I got that feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
But not necessarily that it sought me out, but maybe that it was just sort of mooching about in the forest, and then I got close and realised I was there, and then sort of came closer to have a look, maybe, and then.
Well, there's definitely a lot of stories across the country about big cats out in the wild, and I definitely believe them. I've never seen one, but I've certainly seen enough wild.
Well, I've had what I think was a big cat experience, but that was a different thing. But I don't think would have been a big cat, because I could hear it, and when I had the big cat experience, I couldn't hear anything.
What about a really big cat?
Well, possibly, but it would have had to be really big.
Yes. No, that's
But
really,
I don't know.
very interesting. But I'm afraid that at this time of day, my energy levels drop significantly. So
No,
I'm going
that's
to
fair enough.
have
But
a nap at this point. But it's been a really fascinating conversation. I very much enjoyed hearing what you had to say today, Helen, and how open-minded you've been about everything. And it's been very enjoyable. And I hope that that you got something from it, and that you don't feel as nervous now.
no, I don't now. Now that I know we're finishing.
Yeah, it's like relief, isn't it? That's what it is, relief.
Yeah.
You could have just done what you've done with your aliens. Should have just got up and legged it.
Yeah.
What? I've got to talk.
I like to think I might be a bit braver now.
Yeah, well, I think you're brave just to come on and actually tell us, because I mean, I can't stand it when people like to try and ridicule and sort of catch people out. I'm not one of them. You know, everyone's got a story to tell, and you know, I believe we got you on here for you to actually sort of speak and tell us. I mean, I really, really appreciate it. So, I mean, I'm sure all the viewers do, but I don't care if they do or they don't. I did. I think it's
Most of them
fascinating.
probably think I'm nuts now.
And I would also say to anyone who is in the chat, if you have a story that you want to tell, or if there is anything interesting that you feel that you would like to share, feel free to do so. Then get in touch with Wiz, let him know. We can have a talk about it. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a personal experience that is really significant that you might want to share with people. But if you do want to do that, get in touch with Wiz and we'll see what we can do, because I think there's a lot of people out there with a lot of interesting experiences that need to be shared for us to really sort of understand each other better.
I haven't got my reading glasses on. Is that 2.5 hours we've been on?
Yeah.
Oh my
It is.
God.
I just realised.
That's why
see, that's how you are. You realised that time just went by because you felt relaxed and comfortable, I hope. So happy days, isn't it? No one's going to trump an extraterrestrial experience, but I'm up for all special guests, not a problem. But no, I really, really appreciate you doing it, Helen. I think it's been absolutely fascinating.
Yeah,
Thank
me
you,
too. I
both.
very much appreciate it. And good luck to you, Wiz, because you've got another one to do in a few hours' time.
What is it, Thursday?
Tomorrow, isn't it? It's been changed. It's tomorrow now, isn't it?
Richard Rogue, we had to cancel. So
twice I've got the date wrong for it now.
Yeah, well, made me panic then. But no, Richard Rogue had to cancel. Richard's got something personal going on, which I'm not divulging his stuff. But we'll sort it out with him for another time. But that's all good. I think I've had my fill this week with the extraterrestrial discussion with Helen. I mean, that's made my year. That as I just think it's fascinating. But whether it gets proven or not, it doesn't matter. It's just fascinating, and to hear Helen actually say it and that, like, rather than people like hearsay, like from the horse's mouth. Now, I'm not calling you a horse. I'm just saying from the horse's mouth. And we made her laugh. Look, we've had a giggle. She felt relaxed, and she spent the last 2 hours, 29 minutes and 7 seconds here. Or maybe she missed the first 15 minutes because the Greys were playing with her mobile phone. But we got there. We got there.
No, it was really interesting. It'd be great to have another conversation about something in the future. So that would be good.
Yeah, I think Helen should hopefully, now she's done the demons, as and when we do call-ins, maybe she'll feel like she can come up and talk and have a chat now. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or tomorrow you'll go straight back to, no, I ain't going up there. No way. Because I'm like that sometimes. But you do it once, you think it's all right. But then next time you're like, nope, not doing it.
Yeah, like I say, it happened to me about 12:30. I thought, I don't want to do this today. I really don't feel like it. And then I thought, no, do it. And like I say,
and you're still here.
Really glad that I did do it.
I was the opposite. I was sat here 10 minutes early, mate. I was like, yes, this is going to be so cool.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. So thanks for giving us that space.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Is there anything you want to say, Helen? I mean, obviously, you're happy to. You may leave when you wish. Now we've got all your juicy details out. But is there anything you'd like to say before you leave?
No, just thank you very much, both of you, for your time and the questions and everything.
Hang on, there's someone at the door. Sorry.
been an absolute pleasure, Helen. So, well, I'll let you go then, Helen. I'll do my goodbyes and everything and all that. So you don't want to just be sat there, do you, listening to me talk rubbish now, go chat and everything. But okay, I'll take you off screen. But it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for doing that, Helen. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. How was that, ladies and gents? Oh, what a lovely lady. I think it's so nice to actually have someone on who's just honest, says what they think it is, open-minded. So I think we were blessed, absolutely blessed to get to meet Helen today. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So big ups to Helen. Thank you very much. Hope she's still listening. Big ups, Helen. It's been, it's absolutely amazing.
Sorry I had to rush off then. It was a delivery.
Oh, but no, I'm just bigging Helen up for being brave, speaking the truth, and being open-minded. So I think it was absolutely fantastic. So I love it when people are like that, because they don't get all arsey or whatever. Do you know what I mean? That they're just willing to listen. And you ask the right questions, Jake. I mean, I couldn't get any questions in. You're asking. I was literally look. I've written a whole A4. I've written all down there, and look at all that writing. And when I go to ask something, I'm like, oh, I know what I'm going to ask. Then you asked it. I'm like, okay, I don't know what to ask, but I don't mind. It's nice not to have my voice every 10 seconds. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But your questions were brilliant, mate. I appreciate you and doing that. So
I wish that I had not asked leading questions, but there we go. I'm very glad with how things have gone, but as you can tell, I'm absolutely knackered now. So it was great. Yeah,
I can't believe we went 2.5 hours, mate. I was like, wow. When Helen said, I looked up because I thought she's looking at the clock in disbelief. And I was like, oh my God, 2 hours, 29 minutes. Wow.
And so, also, thanks to the people in the chat. I didn't really look that as often today because I was too busy concentrating, but thanks to everyone for watching. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the space and the time that we've been given today. So thank you, Wiz.
It's not a problem, mate. It's my pleasure. I love doing this sort of stuff, getting to meet people and hearing different stories. It's brilliant. So if you want to disappear then, Jake, I shall do my goodbyes like I do.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
That's all right, mate. Take it easy. There we go, ladies and gents. Jake as well, as always. I think Jake's great with the questions. He definitely thinks quicker and better than I do because he's there with the right questions at the right time. Helen was absolutely fantastic. So, excuse me. And thanks to every single one of you in chat for listening and watching and everything. And I appreciate the fact that I did keep an eye on the chat because as soon as someone was going to say anything negative about Helen, I was literally just going to ban them for life and I was going to tell people to do it. And guess what? I didn't have to do that. So I appreciate it that you're all willing to listen to Helen as well. Just because Helen's got a story that you're jealous of, you can't go around being nasty about it. I'm not having it, but I think it was fascinating. And I genuinely believe that she believes of what she saw, what she experienced. Jake was trying to sort of debunk it with the sort of possibly with the sleep paralysis, but we don't know, do we? And that's what makes it really interesting, because I think, to have someone like Helen come on and actually say about the experience and we all get to hear it. I keep saying, I'm jealous. That's what it is. I am jealous. It happened to Helen and not me. Why not me? Why not the Wiz? But oh well, what can I do? But it's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much to Helen. Thank you to Jake. And thank you to every single one of you in chat. As always, I absolutely 100% appreciate it. And other than that, really, I'm back. When am I back? Tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And Thursday, like I say, Rich and Rogue has had to cancel, but we'll still be doing like a call in or whatever we do. So it's going to be happy days, and like everyone's there saying thank you to Helen, which is very nice of you, because you're all lovely, aren't you, in chat? You're all lovely. So happy days. But I'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and it'll just be me talking. I'm afraid you won't get to speak or see the lovely Helen. It's just going to be me and my lovely beard. What can I say? But nonetheless, I'll see you at 1 p.m, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. And for now, that is the wizard's words.